purpose for my life that's about more than just me. From grief to purpose. No, I am not my pain, and I'm telling you my journey of healing is gonna take me from grief to purpose. Turning my pain into purpose. From grief to purpose. Turning all my pain into purpose. From grief to purpose.
It's fine. Great, listen, it's fine. Me and
This is
you
the real
doing our
deal.
thing. All right. Welcome to From Grief to Purpose podcast. Listen, if you've been tuning in, the show is about relating to everyone has a From Grief to Purpose story. Now today, joining me today is my big sister, LaShawn, and we're getting to a little chat here. We'll let you know what we're going to chat about, but first I'm going to let you, LaShawn, introduce yourself, please.
So I am LaShawn. I am Minnina's big sister. I am a third grade teacher. I'm currently in grad school because I'm going to be a principal in a few years. Mother of 5, and I'm ready to take this journey.
The girls got goals. Okay, grad students, teacher. Okay, now so today. The topic for today is we are going to be talking about the book that I wrote, and then my sister co-wrote. She contributed to a chapter 3. And the book is, if you have not seen it or picked it up yet, it
Look at
is
that beautiful
called
woman right
Grief Looks Like Me. Thank you, sis. Grief Look Like Me. So we're going to get into a little bit about this book. And if you all would like to purchase the book, you can head over to my website and check it out. But the book initially formed from, of course, me wanting to tell a little bit about my own personal story, which was the passing of my mother, but also the passing of my father, and what I went through. And I said, of course, when I say mine, I'm talking about our mother and father. There's 4 of us total. So again, like I said, she's the big sister. Okay, I'm next. And then we have a brother that is a year. Me and him are a year apart, James. And then we have another brother. He's the youngest, Leonard. So there's 4 of us total. And so just essence, I wanted to, being a grief support coach, I also wanted to tell my story. And that's what the book is about. So it's about, as it's stated, a daughter's journey through the loss of both parents. So we're going to just get up and, since I thought we would just, chop it up about, our process, what I went through, what you went through, maybe take some highlights from the book. I don't know.
Yes.
I just wanted to I felt it was just nice to have a discussion with you, because I know, I don't think coming up, we really had moments like these, when we were just kind of sitting down and really diving into exactly what we were going through emotionally after mom passed first, right? Because mom passed in, say the date, child, say the date, because I still...
May 3rd, 1996.
May 3rd, 1996. And you all know I talk about grief fog, and that's something that I've dealt with. And I didn't know what it was until I started, evolving and getting older and educating myself. But that's a real thing. So especially with grief and trauma related events, that it does occur. May 3rd, 1996, okay, this is the day after my birthday. My birthday is May 2nd. So, and that's probably the reason why, I was blocked, mental block, shocked, I just went into that mode. But I'm going to start off with you. So, you being the big sister, so I'm going to give honor. I'm going to throwing the torch, throwing the mic your way. And then also too, because I know that you, being the big sister, probably took on, a role yourself. At the time, and you mentioned it in the book, you were also pregnant with my first niece, you guys. First
that's
niece.
Right.
And so you were also, about to be a mother. So let's get into what you were actually going through when we knew mom was sick, right? Found out she was sick.
So actually we knew, but we didn't know the same information about mom being sick.
Yeah.
So you actually knew more than I knew because I had just graduated from college a year before our mother passed. And I wasn't told everything that was going on with my mom's sickness. And I understand now why. At the time, I didn't really like it. But she had been sick for a while. And so when she had, right before she had passed, that's like really when I found out how sick she was. And I think one of the main reasons I found out how sick she was is because I ended up getting pregnant with my oldest daughter, who was our parents' first grandchild. And then that's when like more information came out. So I had just graduated from college. It was my first year teaching. I was teaching at a Catholic school as a single parent. So, that didn't really rub too well with them. But then about 2 weeks before our mother passed, I had flown down with two of my aunts. I had flown down to North Carolina. Yes, North Carolina. And we had spent some time with our mom. It was our mom, all but one of her sisters, a good friend of the family. I can't remember which aunt's good friend it was, and our grandmother. And Nina, I don't know if you remember or not, but we had went to the Chinese buffet, and we went to go see the movie Waiting to Exhale. And so like we had all piled into that big old gray van. They had to bring a step. So it's the comic version of it is that they brought the step stool. My brother brought the step stool out from our mom to get in on the passenger side. And then they brought it around to the driver's side for me to get in because everyone was so concerned about me being pregnant and driving safely and, just not stressing myself. So about 2 weeks before my mother passed, were ended up spending some good time with our aunts and our grandma. We were just like eating. And so for a while, the movie Waiting to Exhale was kind of hard for me to watch because the last time I seen it was with you, mom, her sisters, and our grandmother. But then going up to when I left for that trip, I still remember to this day how mom sounded when I walked out the house because I could hear her crying. And I say it in the book. I could hear her crying as I was going out the door. And even though I didn't want to admit it, I kind of knew that she was, coming close to the end. But you and I had came up with a deal where I was about to move back to North Carolina right after I had my daughter. And then you were going to go to school during the daytime. I was going to work in the evenings. Like Nina and I had it all planned out. And our mom decided, a little bit differently. And then also our dad ended up doing the same thing to us a few years later. Nina and I had a whole plan and he was like, nope, not going to stick around for this. Anyway, back to our mom. The day I found out I was 9 months pregnant and I remember the phone ringing. I got up, our dad was telling me what was going on. As soon as I heard my dad's voice, I knew what was happening. I didn't want to know, but you just know. And so I had to make arrangements to fly down to North Carolina, 9 months pregnant, first pregnancy. That in itself is a miracle that I had no issues while I was being pregnant. And then just the amount of events that happened, the things I had to do, like I had to kick in and, be the real big sister. I also had to be like a go-between for our dad, our aunt, because everyone was grieving in different ways. And it was just like a lot to do. One of the things I do remember, and I put that in the book too, was that there was so much food involved. And when you like to eat, and especially when you're pregnant, food really comes in handy. So being in North Carolina and being able to go to the good chicken places, because the food is better in the South. But just the different things that went through, like all the emotions. I ended up going to labor at our mother's funeral. Went to the doctor, the hospital sent me back, got up the next day. My sister and I were, I was trying to get my sister to work with me to hold off my grandmother and our auntie so I could take a shower before I would go to the hospital. But, and I ain't mad at you about it. It's just, I just want to take a shower if I went, have my first shower. But it didn't happen like that. So we both ended up getting in trouble because I was trying to get in the shower before I went to the hospital to have my baby. And my grandmother and my aunts were like cracking up laughing. They were like, you really trying to take a shower right now? But yes, I was. But it was just like a lot going on. But we ended up having again, I think our mother planned that for, because her funeral was May 10th. My daughter was born May 11th. And that Sunday, May 12th, was my first Mother's Day as a mom and my first Mother's Day without my mom. And I ended up naming my daughter Carmen after my mother, and which started the trend for each of my children, who were named after a family member for the middle name. So my mom, had gave me the name Carmen if I had a girl, Cameron if I had a boy. So I ended up sticking with those because my daughter's name is Carmen and my son's name is Cameron.
Oh, go back,
But
go back, go back, go back. Because I want to rush. I don't want to rush through the process, but go
okay. I
back.
apologize.
I was trying
to keep it in time.
No, you're good. We got plenty of time.
Okay.
We got plenty of time. But go back because I want to also, mention that because at the time I was turning 17, right? And
You
you
had
were
just turned 17.
Yep, just turned 17. And how old were you?
I was 25.
So 25 years old. And so I
Yes.
want people to have an understanding of our age, but also to, what you were dealing with. Because we were all doing, different things.
We
or
were.
dealing
We
with
were.
it
It
differently.
was, yeah.
Yeah. And then being that you were having, mom's and your dad's first grandchild, I want to know
Yes.
though how you felt, like how you were really feeling, like, but despite the trying to be the big sister, all that kind of
Right.
stuff, like what were you going through emotionally?
I was, so Nina and I are 9 years apart. And then our brother, who's right after her, is 10 years younger than me. And then our youngest brother is 13 years younger than me. So I've always been like the big sister, the second mom. When we were younger, I was the one that babysat all the time. But having to go into that role, like even though I was pregnant, I hadn't adjusted to being a mother yet. But then having to adjust to being a mom, being a big sister, and then having to take care of like the little things. And then like when I said I had to be like a go-between between my dad and my aunts, there were times where like me being the oldest sister, I felt the need to protect my siblings. And so there were some things that I was trying to like shield them from. So I can remember like, even though you're not supposed to do it, voicing my opinion to my aunties and my grandmother and just letting them know like, okay, I understand that my mother is your sister or your daughter, but these are my siblings. So we're not doing this. And I remember I had a conversation with our dad at the time. And, it wasn't like it was like a battle, but it was more like, I'm taking charge of this. I'm doing this. And I just felt in one moment, I felt like I had to be in charge because I've always been in charge of my siblings. And then in the other minute, it was like, I couldn't even, the best way for me to grieve was to just be in charge and put my feelings to the side. And, I kept doing that for a very long time. Like just recently, maybe like in the last year or two, I've now acknowledged the fact that I need to take time for myself. So I didn't take time for myself. I just went into what was supposed to happen. It was like, oh, well, the big sister's supposed to do this. The big supposed to do that. Like from planning our mother's, writing our mother's obituary, planning what clothing my siblings were going to wear, talking to my dad about, burial information, talking to my aunties about it, deciding like what was going to happen. We already knew our mother was going to be buried at Fort Bragg Cemetery because our father was in the military, retired from the military at the time. And so that part was taken care of. But it was just like all the things that a 25-year-old who's about to have a baby should not have to handle. I was handling because I felt like if I took on more of it, then it would be less pressure or less hurt like for my siblings to take care of. And even though we were in 4 different places, emotionally, physically, I still felt like it was my job as the oldest sibling to do what was right for them because that's what, like I felt like expectation was.
Yeah, so because we were, again, young, and
Yeah,
if anybody,
we were 20. I was 25 because I hadn't turned 26. You had just turned 20. I'm sorry, you had just turned 17.
17.
The day before mom passed. James was 15, and Leonard, I want to say, was 25 minus 30. He was 12.
Yeah. Which is like, I always feel bad for Leonard. Even now, I still kind of get like a little. I think about him because he still doesn't remember a lot about mom. Even though he was 12, so I always feel sad like as it relates to that. But so if you've lost a parent, or as we're talking about, just getting into a little bit about the book, Grief Look Like Me, a daughter's journey through the loss of both parents. If you've lost a parent, you understand what we're talking about. If you haven't lost a parent, especially at a younger age, this will give you hopefully, some empathy towards somebody that you may know that has lost a parent. And at a young age, at an older age, it doesn't matter. Losing a parent is losing a parent. But yeah, we went through a lot, and I think we went through so much, and I always felt like when mom passed away, it was like a bomb exploded, within our family.
It
like
was.
everyone just like, we went so many different ways. But that was us also processing, and I always say including dad, but we processed it very differently. And then, we just did not, I feel like we didn't have the tools to grieve properly. Like, as far as like therapy was not a thing back then. Like, therapy was not like, let's go to therapy, shall we? Like, let's schedule this appointment with this counselor because, they're going to help us walk through this process. And then we weren't really talkative either like that. I think we just, and not like, I always say that we just weren't, we talked in our family, we had great conversations, we had things like that, but we did not, I don't feel we didn't talk about like something like this because it was so sudden. How do you communicate this when all of us are going through it?
The only preparation we had for if anything were to happen to either one of our parents would be mom, like when we, because siblings like get into it, whatever, no matter what the age gap is. Mom would say, all right, now what are y'all going to do when I'm gone? Y'all better, love each other when I'm gone. But that was the only instruction we had, and it's like, it's no fault to mom or dad, but it's like mom didn't really talk about like a lot of negative things. Like, I can literally count on one hand the amount of funerals I went to younger, because we just didn't do that. With dad, as we got a little bit older, we attended our grandmother's funeral on his side of the family and Aunt Linda's funeral, but we didn't talk about that. We didn't talk about coping skills. And I think that's because mom and dad didn't have the tools either. So, it's, as a parent, I now see that like you can only give, like, I cannot think of exact words, I do apologize, but like, like if your cup is not full, you can't give. And then when your cup's empty, you can try to pretend like you still have something in that cup, but you can really only give what you're getting, and that's it, until you realize that you have to go to another source to pour into your cup so you're able to pour onto others.
Right, for sure. They did the best job that they can do, which, as far as like our upbringing and things like that, I believe that we had good parents with good intentions, what I'm saying, as far as the people that they were. If because honestly, like, it wouldn't hurt so bad if, as far as this grieving your parents thing, if we didn't have, if we didn't love them the way that we love them.
Right.
There's no process. The part that so it's such an advocate for about, grieving and talking and emotionalizing your process, talking it through, going to get counseling now, seeking therapy or a grief support coach like myself or whatever, is because, it would have been helpful when we lost our mother initially first, because she was our first like hit. We had lost grandma, mom's mom, right before
no, dad's mom,
mom,
like 2 years prior.
2 years prior, right? And so that was a hit. I felt that one, right? I did feel it, but I didn't feel it as hard as I felt it, of course, when mom passed away, because she's our mother. And then there's no
no preparation for it.
There's no preparation. Like, what do you do when you lose your mother? Like, what do you do? Like, how do you live life after that? And I think that's the part I was feeling.
And it's also not the same. Like,
no, it's not.
Losing mom, that didn't prepare us for when we lost dad.
No.
So
no.
there's, so without therapy or like, there's no way to prepare for it.
No. So, okay, let's get into a little bit. Let's talk about the book. Why did you want, so initially, backstory, right? Wrote the book, was going back and forth for the title, shot the suggestion. I was talking to my sister too, like, hey sis, what do you think about this title? Because initially I did not want to say Grief Looks Like Me, because I'm not grief. as far as the reflection of grief. I didn't want that to be like a thing, but I wanted
Right.
to be a reflection of this is a past circumstance, but grieving, the loss of a loved one, it always stays with you. There's never necessarily no end to it. But the way that I grieve now and go through my process is more important to me, especially, even when I'm helping others, like the way that you grieve, the way that you go through your process is important. So got the want was there to write the book. The show up, was there. The actual show up, when writing the book was a little emotional. I was here for the process, but I had to pause. I had to stop because when you're doing something like this, you definitely have to go back and reflect on a lot, go through those different journeys. So when you wrote your chapter in chapter 3, and the title of her, let me go to the chapter. The title of her specific chapter, you all would. So when you read the book, and you get to read a bit of her chapter, my sister's chapter is titled "Through My Sister's Eyes: A Different Type of Grief." And I thought that was so necessary, to mention that because there's 4 of us, 2 boys, 2 girls. We're different people, we're siblings, but we're all different people, individuals.
Yes.
So when you wrote your chapter, what was it like for you? Like, was it hard, or was it emotional, or was it just like, okay?
It was emotional,
Mm,
but it's kind of the definition of me.
mm,
Because like I said, like I had like wasn't fully aware of how sick mom was. You and I had came up with our plan for what we were gonna do.
mm.
As far as like me moving back to North Carolina and taking care of mom. Um, so when it was time for me to write it, because it's been my it's kind of been like my mantra. Like I know that like mom had passed away, but part of me like kind of like shielded myself so that like the pain could only be this much. Once I reach this much pain, then I went on to something else. And not as in like disrespect to my mom. It's just that I could only deal with so much emotion. And even though mom wasn't that happy that I had gotten pregnant immediately after college, I think that it was God's way of getting me through, because I still remember like right after she had passed that days where I was just sitting on my couch
Mhm.
and I had my daughter on my lap and just thinking to myself, like, how am I supposed to do this? Because I had just graduated from college. I had, I was only 25. I turned 26 2 months after having 3 months after having my daughter. Um, I was too young to be losing my mother. I'm like, I'm not ready for this. And then I was thinking to myself, like, okay, if I'm not ready, there's no way Nina's ready. There's no way James and Leonard are ready. We weren't ready for this. And
Mm.
so, for a while, I was like mad at everyone and everything. Like, I didn't want to deal with anyone that had a mom, which is nearly impossible.
It's
But,
real.
and then like I just threw myself into Carmen, into
Mhm.
being a mom for her. I'm like, okay, so what can I do? What did I learn from my mom in being a mom so I could pass it on to my daughter? And
Yeah.
so there were good and bad things that I passed on to each of my children. But
Mm.
going back through it, one, it was funny
Mhm.
because when you read the book, you see there's, airlines that they treat pregnant women hilariously at sometimes. Like the trip from Milwaukee to Fayetteville, North Carolina was very interesting. Any women out there that have been pregnant, just picture being uncomfortable and then you on a plane.
Mm.
And then you try not to go into labor. Like I knew I wasn't going to have my child on the airplane. There was no way. But the pilots were not too sure of that, and neither were the other passengers. But just like going through just like because I had to shorten it because a whole lot happened from the day that I got the phone call from our dad saying our mother had passed, which was on a Friday, to the Tuesday that I flew out to North Carolina, and then going through everything that happened right after I had my daughter, staying down in North Carolina. But basically, like the same mentality that I had when I got down there was like, okay, I got to take care of my siblings. I got to take care of my siblings. I got to make sure everybody was okay. I make sure it was. So I just had to deny myself of any type of emotions because that was the only way I can get through it. So reading, writing the chapter, it took me 2 days after Nina asked me to do it. 2 days to write it because I was crying the whole time. Sometimes it was tears of laughter. Sometimes it was tears of sorrow because, you lose a parent, you lose a parent. And then other times it was tears of gratefulness because so much could have happened to me, giving birth to my first child, just, and I didn't realize like how much of a threat like your emotions can be to when you are when you're pregnant, and trying to have successful pregnancy. But then looking back at it, then I had to start to give myself some credit because, I was like, I made it through that. And there'll be times, like I tell people, whenever you like get to a new place where you work, and people are like, oh, let's play the game, two truths and a lie. And so I was like, oh, when like my mother's funeral, people are like, oh, that's the lie. I was like, no, that one's the truth. They're like, oh my God, how do you survive, going through, your mother? I was like, well, I had to have the baby. She had to come out. But just like, not knowing how to deal with the emotions, not having the right tools. And then me writing that chapter was a good tool. Like I've grown, healed a little bit more just since writing that chapter. Even though I always had it in my head, but putting it, into words helped me, know that it's okay to start healing. Like my mom would forgive me to heal. Like I literally, when Nina said she was writing this book and she wanted to do that chapter, I felt like it was a word from my mom saying, yes, you may heal now. It is okay. Because I felt bad for living. And then the chapter also confirmed for me that since I made it past the age of 46, that I was going to keep going. Let me just backtrack just a little bit. So my mother passed away at the age of 45. She died a month before her 46th birthday. Mm-hmm. So from the time of 25 to 45, for me, for that 20 years, I just existed because I felt like if my mother passed at 45, I was going to pass at 45. Mm-hmm. And I just kind of prepared my children, well, not my children, prepared myself like, okay, once I reach 45, then that's it. So I just put my life on hold. Like, I'm just going to be a mom. I'm going to try to pour into my kids as much as I can. And then, if I make it to 45, fine. But I didn't think I was going to make it past my 45th year. Well, God had other plans. I'm 54 now. Okay. Ain't no stopping me.
And
I'm doing for me and my mama.
Listen, pause for just a second because honestly, that is a real thing because I did deal with that. We've had, me and my sister, we've had conversations and called and, hey, have you done your, gotten your mammogram? So it's like, but that's a real thing, a real mental attack sometimes when you lose a parent early and they've left this earth at a certain age. And so now your thoughts go running like, okay, am I going to make it past this age? So with that, that has taken definitely some prayer, some speaking against like, listen, Lord, like if it's meant for me to be on this earth past this age, but what I'm not going to do is, settle at this, state of this is going to be my story because, it's not. But real quick, I want to go back and just say, about the birth of Carmen, right? Because going back, right, you mentioned, and it's in the book too, right, how, you got the name from mom, but
because she didn't like my first name.
We got to talk about the delivery room process because I don't know about.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I still remember.
I didn't even put that in there.
Yeah, that part is not in the book, but we'll mention it a little bit here. But I still remember to this day, because we were allowed. It was myself and my aunt allowed in the delivery room. But I'm gonna run to the end of this portion of the story here. To me, when Carmen, which is my niece, was coming out, it felt very like angelic. It felt very, and I don't know if it was because I was a little lightheaded too, but it felt very like there was a transition. You know what I'm saying? Like there was like mom's was the angel and she was present and Carmen was coming into the earth. It was such a very, transitional moment. For me, that's what it felt like for me. I don't know what it felt like for you, but yeah, I wanted to mention that.
Yeah. So, as my sister just mentioned, she was in the delivery room with me. It was her and Glenda, who my oldest daughter carries. Her middle name is our aunt's name. Mm-hmm. And so like when it was time for her to go in there, my Aunt Glenda was like, all right, let's do this. First of all, Aunt Glenda, who is our mother's baby sister, has always been the cheerleader of the family. She's the first one to let you know, well, God's going to have you do it this way. So you just think of like God's cheerleader. That's our Aunt Glenda. When it came time for me to, go to the hospital. My daughter, my Glenda's like, come on. She's like, all right, Minnina, let's go. You come in here too. So I decided who was going to just deliver room with me. You know, she's like, let's do this. And so
wait. Pause for a second. So let me tell you something. I really feel like they wanted me in the delivery room just so that I would not have a baby.
Because that was said. Because that was said. It was. I'm not gonna say who said. Yeah, and that was another thing. Because you kind of weren't supposed to be in the delivery room because you're supposed to be 18.
Hello,
but,
hello.
Our family is like, you know, it's kind of hard to tell certain people in our family no once we decide on something. And we did play upon the fact that I was a grieving new mother because we had a whole lot of people in the way.
Yeah,
we could have had more people in the delivery room, but my auntie was like, no, we're gonna have just myself, you know, and her sister, you know. And I felt like, as you said, it was kind of religious, like, because our mom's sister was there.
Spiritual.
And my sister was spiritual.
Yeah.
Thank you. Spiritual.
Yeah.
Our mom's sister was there. My sister was there. And this was the process. So yes, when I had my daughter, it was like our mother had blessed us with like her passing. My daughter came, you know, within 48 hours of the funeral, we had a new Carmen. And I remember, because the day after I had her, 2 days after I had her, was one of our cousins, one of our mom's first cousins. You know, he's like, that's the best birthday present I could have had. Your mother wouldn't have wanted it any other way because even before our mother passed, she's like, you're not going to grieve over me. Yeah. And I remember looking at her like, you're my mom. I'm going to grieve, you know, but didn't have time to.
Yeah, it was very timely. Very timely. I was cute though. I will say that I was cute.
Oh yeah, you look real cute in them scrubs. When I find that picture, somebody's got that picture. When I find that picture,
at that picture,
you and Auntie Glenda in those scrubs, because y'all were real cute. Okay,
I wish
with or without makeup, my sisters always got it going on.
I wish I had that. Look, afterwards, I really thought that I wanted to be an OBGYN after that, just from the picture, just from the process, because I cut the umbilical cord and everything, right? I was like,
yes. You and Auntie Glenda.
Yeah, that was a little bit much. That was
something else that like, it was only supposed to be like one first. Auntie Glenda's like, no, we're both doing it, so we need two pairs of scissors.
That was the real birth control, like for real. That was.
It didn't work for me because I had 4 more after that.
That was you. Listen, you wasn't on the receiving end. That's why. That was the real.
No, I was just the one pushing her out. That's all.
Listen, I'm like, nope, this is too much for me.
Yeah, she was not a lightweight baby either.
Yeah, listen, beautiful process though. It was such a very beautiful and spiritual process. I just thought like, but we went through a lot during that time. And then, years go by. And then in the book, I discussed like a bit of what I went through, whoever messing with a shine in the background, who is that? Because look, this is the auntie moment now. Who is
your
that?
other niece, Sanaa.
Show your face.
She done got to my.
Sana.
Oh no, she's not camera ready. She's not camera ready. Mm-hmm.
Oh, boo boo.
No, she touching my food. I'm like, leave my food alone. See, that's the one thing. Anyone out as a parent, you already know your food is not your food. If you want to eat your food to yourself, you got to eat it in the car. I didn't even know she was home. Otherwise, I wouldn't have left her on the kitchen table.
Y'all making me hungry. Listen, but I talked about, what I went through, a little bit of it, in the books. I didn't want to write a novel. This is like years of, from 97 to 2024, because I actually finished writing the book in 24 and then published it in 25, at January 25. So it's like years of things. Like I said, when you lose a parent, you don't really there's no getting over the fact that you lost, if you lost a parent, lost a child, lost a husband or a wife, to death, them leaving this earth, you don't just get over it in a month, a year, 2 years, 3 years. You're still, grieving them in some form if you, took the time. Because for me, you said, you mentioned like you were a busy person. And that, I think, LaShawn, you're like that anyway. Like you naturally go into like taking care of others mode. I go into, and I noticed I had to reflect and go back on and see how I process. I was like, I go into block mode and not necessarily knowing, okay, I'm blocking this out, and then, work mode, so it took some time to understand, like, did I really grieve when mom passed, and I
Right.
did not, so I had to revisit those journeys and begin to heal. But when did you start to realize, okay, it's okay for me to heal? I know you mentioned that you felt like, okay, mom would say, okay, hey, it's
Reading
all right.
this.
Uh, Not with the book, sis.
Now, when I say like up until first, when I made it to 45, a good friend of mine, Lisa, shout out to Lisa, she knows who she is, the diva.
45. I'm 40.
For my 45th birthday, she gave me a 2-year calendar.
Okay.
It was just a plain 2-year calendar. So the otherwise, I might not mean anything, but in that 2-year calendar, she put in their dates for like what was going to happen for my 46th birthday, for my 47th birthday. She was like, let me explain something to you, LaShawn. She was, now, you got 5 kids. Nobody in this world is going to take care of them 5 kids like you, so you can't go nowhere no time soon.
Right.
So you might as well make plans for your 46th birthday and your 47th birthday. Nothing's going to happen to you. And so she refused to let me count down to my 46th birthday in a negative way.
Nice.
And then also, Nina, I don't know if you remember or not, but because I didn't realize like how, like I was trying to keep everything in. I didn't want to like ever be a burden on anybody else, like emotionally. Like, and I felt like even when I was reading the book, like I didn't do as much for my siblings, like I felt like I should have done, but I had an empty cup, so I couldn't really like give to them. But Nina knew how scared I was about turning 45. So, I think it's when I was 43. My birthday present from you bought life insurance for me. Now, some people were like, oh my, but that was like the best birthday present because
So practical.
that let me know that, she knew that, if I take care of my sister mentally, then it'll be okay. So if mentally I knew that my kids are going to be okay, I was like, okay, so when, not even if, it was when something happens to me, my children will be taken care of because I'm a single parent. And with my sister giving me that life insurance, I was like, okay, fine, got it. And now when I say she got me life insurance, she paid for it for 2 years, okay? When I turned 45, she's like, all right, you had 45, you're on your own now. But that was cool. Then I took over the life insurance. And so between my sister and my good friend Lisa, that's how I started going through the process. But then once I hit 46, a new thing came in. Then I felt guilty because I made it to 46. And so from 46 to 50, it was kind of like, I might start feeling a little better. I don't know. And then as I turned 50, I was like, well, I'm 50 now. And then Aunt Glenda, she was like, you got to start living your life. She told me that, Bobby told me that, Auntie Shirley told me that. And so I was like, well, okay, I guess I'll start now. I'm 50, I'll start. And then, so at 50, because when you get 50, oh, it's so nifty. Then I started saying, yeah, it's time for me to start healing. It's time for me to start healing. And then Dad decided that he wanted to mess up the healing process. It was like, Pots, for real. But it wasn't until I turned 50 that I really felt like it was okay to start my healing process.
Wow. That's a whole conversation though. Like, because you can, especially you definitely can speak to other parents out there that have lost someone or, a parent, a spouse or whatever, because sometimes you have children, to raise, about to knock over my cup. Sometimes you have children to raise or other responsibilities. Sometimes you're just a caregiver of somebody else too. And you forget to take care of yourself. Like you forget that your emotions are valid. Like you forget like, no, it's sometimes okay to be about me.
Right.
How did you to talk to somebody else, outside of the, calendar, your friends, and that circle part is so important to have a circle. I'm so glad you've always had a good circle of friends, or you've always had like a good community, of, people surrounding you, women, and just, having your back. But what would you say to someone then, to help them like just understand, like it's okay to start, being okay to talk about what you're going through?
It's not only okay, it's required. And so, and the grief doesn't look the same for each person. The healing doesn't look the same for each person. But what I had to think to myself was, would mom want me to still be where I'm at emotionally? And so, every year so my oldest daughter's birthday is May 11th. My youngest daughter's birthday is May 13th. Every couple of years, one of their birthdays falls on Mother's Day. And my kids knew that, like, for years, I hated celebrating Mother's Day. So I would throw myself into somebody's birthday party. But after a while, and I want to say it was my daughter Carmen, who had told me, like, Mom, it's okay. You can start taking care of you. And so the mother-daughter marriage is like, Mom, for real, we good. You can do something for yourself. But I really had to get permission from others before I felt like it was okay for me. And then seriously, when you did the book, you start first talking about the book, then that's when I knew it was like Mom, like, telling me, hey, not just the little healing you're doing, but it's time for you to kick into that healing. Like, I need you healed completely so you can start enjoying life fully. Because before I would just, like, I knew to smile when it's time to smile, be upset. But I had, like, very little emotions. And I know that affected my relationships that I was in. But I'm now learning from that process. So now, like I said, it was turning 50. That was a milestone in my life. And then that's when it kickstarted, like, I need to heal so that I can live my life.
Yeah. That's so true. And then also, those, holidays and significant events is very real. But even for me, like certain holidays, I don't care where I was at. Even, sometimes, how like you go to church and they're having like during the Mother's Day service and they're honoring all the mothers or whatever. Listen, when I tell you,
we can't celebrate Mother's Day. Nobody's celebrating Mother's Day.
For a while, you're just like, no, like, I'm not feeling this. Like, I don't want to be here. It just feels very uncomfortable. And that is because it's a trigger for you. Nothing wrong with Mother's Day. Celebrate all the mothers on this earth, including ours. She lived her life. But, it just feels weird. It feels very weird. So if you know somebody that has lost a loved one, just remember, and you haven't lost anyone if you've never, lost someone yet, because this is life. We're not here to be here forever. Just be empathetic towards that person and understanding why they act the way they act around certain holidays and events, because they may be a trigger for them, and they just haven't shared that with you. But yeah, the healing process is definitely real. That's why I wanted to like touch on that for someone that may be stuck, or experiencing delayed grief. You haven't grieved your loved one yet, but now let's get into, because it's always we got to transition and talk about like the passing of our father, with us being adult orphans out here in these streets. That's just how we feel. We just feel very,
because we are
adult.
orphans. We're adult orphans. Adult orphans.
We feel, I'm not laughing like it's a joke. It's just, my little.
That's how we get through life. Like it's because Mom and Dad would have done the same thing. They did the same thing. Like, they were like, okay, but come on, you got to get some humor into it, because I see laughing as breathing. If you stop breathing, you're not going to make it. But when you laugh, you have no choice but to breathe. So you got to laugh a little bit, keep that fresh breath coming through you.
Yes, laughter is good medicine for your soul. But one of the things, I'm gonna transition to this point. So, or centered around, Dad was sick at the time, and when I was taking him back and forth to the hospital when he was on his, I can't remember if it was one of the last moments he was actually in the ER. He kept saying, and I mentioned this portion in the book, it's y'all's time now. It's y'all's time. And I was like, Dad, like, listen, I want you to stop talking like that. Like, just, not knowing that he had already had a sense of awareness of, like, he was about to leave this earth. And me not trying to hear it, I'm like, okay, you'll be fine, because even at that point, to me, and maybe it was me just not wanting to see it, he didn't look sick to me. Like, he didn't look like, okay, like he's about to leave this earth in the in the next couple of weeks. Like, he still looked very, strong. He's an older gentleman, of course. Because
even the day before he passed.
Yeah.
When he talked to me on the phone.
So his was a little bit of a shock to me. And then it was at the height of COVID, like, so it was a lot going on at the time. And then our father didn't pass away because of COVID. He just had some underlying health issues. But it was just like, okay, it was for me when Dad passed away, it was like that extra nail, just like, okay, just hit me again. Like, you try to hit me one more time, life, and you coming, at the wrong time. But, so it was very, and it was very awkward for me. And then I had to we switched roles this time because I was down here because, in South Carolina, because that's where my father lived. That's where I live currently. And at the time, but when I say we switched roles, where now it's like up to me, like now I have to call everybody, which was
Yes.
awkward, and inform everyone, being older. But when I called you to let you know that dad had passed away, what were your initial?
So I was at work. Being a teacher, you have to have a part-time job or a couple of them. So I was at a particular location and I had to get off my register to go answer the phone. So by the time, like I'd seen that Nina called me and then she sent me a text message saying, call immediately. And I was like, okay, I excused myself from the register. And by the time I got maybe like 20 feet from the register, as I'm calling her number, and I'm like, this better not be because, like when our dad passed, it was November 1st, we got a phone call that he had, with Nina texted me saying he went to the hospital. November 8th, she said that he had fallen in his bathroom and hit his head. And then November 15th, so these are 3 Sundays, the 1st, the 8th, and the 15th. So when Nina called me and, she was like, Sean, I was like, okay. She's like, dad passed. And I immediately, turned to like a little kid. I remember falling on the floor and losing it, and I think Nina gave me about a good 45 seconds. And she was like, sis, I need you to get it together because I need you down here now. I said, okay, you did.
Okay.
But it was needed though. Like no. And it's sorry. In not a disrespectful way. And when I say like 45 seconds, I don't mean like it wasn't like you were uncaring, but it was like you knowing me, you knew that if you didn't snap me back, there was no time how long it was going to take me to bring it back. So, you're like, okay, sis, I need you down here now. How long will it be for you get here? Within like the couple of minutes of our conversation, we kept like, okay, I'm on my way. And so I felt like, my sister saying, hey, I can hold this down for a minute or two, but big sis, get down here so that we could, because it was a
Before
lot.
I lose my crap. No.
Yes. And so, right after, I talked to Nina, I immediately told the manager, hey, I got to go. And so then I called our brother. So I was like, okay, because at the time he was the only sibling that didn't know. So I pulled over to the side of the road, called my brother, let him know. And I remember kept thinking to myself, like, there should really be a script for what you can say to people so that it can kind of like ease the pain. And our brother is real, like, cool, calm, and collected. He was like, okay. And I knew he cared, but he was like, okay. And then, like, we probably asked, like, how are you doing? And because your automatic reaction is, well, how are you doing? That's how you ask the person. But you really know the person's like, I'm having a fit right now. Our father just passed away.
Yeah.
And so we started making our plans. And then I remember calling, I call her my sister, my oldest daughter's aunt. And I was like, can I come to your house? Because I knew I couldn't drive home. And her father had just passed 3 months prior. And so as soon as she heard my voice, she was like, come to my house now. And fortunately, she wasn't too far from where I was at. And then I had to start making all the phone calls here in Milwaukee. And I remember like having to call our cousin, Woogie, whose dad is our dad's next brother. And I was like, listen, I need you to call your dad so that you can let him know that my dad just passed away. Now, here's the deal. Our cousin was in Texas. Our uncle's here in Milwaukee. I was not about to call him to tell him that. She was like, call my mom and have my mom, tell my dad. And it's like, who can you tell the news to that the person will be able to ease it well or, take it as well as possible. Just like the process of, because it felt like losing mom all over again. Like I still had to call all the Milwaukee people. And then of course everybody's like, how's Nina? How's Leonard? How's James? How's this? And then when I got to my house, I had to tell my kids. I think I made it into my living room. And that was as far as I could get. And as soon as I walked through the door, my kids knew there was something. And, and then like having to tell them, that was hard.
Yeah.
Because I knew I had to break my kids' hearts again. Because that year, my son had lost his grandfather in March. 2 of my daughters had lost their grandfather in July. Our dad is like, my kid's grandfather. And then our dad passed in November. So in that 6-month period of time, my children had lost 3 of their grandfathers. And the fact that I had to come home and tell them that, I didn't have time to, uh, okay, my kids knew that I really hadn't completely healed from losing my mom. And then from, now finding out that, I've just lost my father. So they took it upon themselves like, okay, we got to help mama real quick to try to get through this and then get myself together so I can get down to South Carolina. And then, we had to deal with everything we had to deal with down there. And so just the, even reading the book when I was going through chapters, things that I didn't know had happened to dad, while they were down there. But then it's, pieces started fitting into the puzzle oh, that's why. Okay. And then that's why, because Nina and I had a conversation shortly before our father passed, where I was coming down there for Thanksgiving, and we were going to take care of some family business. And I remember, I don't know if you remember that, Nina, but we were like, okay, don't tell dad, but I'll be there for Thanksgiving. And felt like dad was like, oh, I'm gonna one up y'all. It's okay. I'm gonna take care of me. Which I kind of feel like, mom did the same thing. It's I feel like both of them made it until their strength was gone on earth. But with dad, I'm accepting that a little bit quicker than I did with mom. I now understand that once your earthly body is tired, you need to let go. And so that's what kind of helps me heal, that I'm okay, their earthly body is gone, but spiritually, emotionally, they're still there for us. They're still there for me.
Yeah. It's and for me, the transition was different again. And it's still difficult, it's still difficult to talk about. Even now, talking about it feels awkward. And I'm talking about as it relates to losing both of our parents. And then with dad being that final loss of our parents, it was being funny. Who wrote this script for us? Wait a second. Who wrote this script of life for us?
Can I just ask something just real quick? Not just so when our dad passed, both sets of our grandparents were already deceased. So our dad was kind of that last connection, so to speak.
Yeah.
And
that's a weird feeling.
Yeah, because then I was like, oh, now I got to be grown for real.
Right. Because because when mom passed, when you lose a parent at a young age, 17, 25, James was 15 and 12, right? You grow up. You have to grow up fast. And you have to start living life a little bit differently. So you're not doing the same things that your peers or your friends are doing as it relates to living life.
Right.
And you start embracing life. I know I did a little bit later in life, because I still had a whole mindset about living. It was more, no, I gotta get this, get stuff done.
I was I only got 20 years left, so let me see if I can get into this 20 years. Okay, that's all there's left.
And so now, even when dad was on his, saying his, last words that I wasn't trying to receive, and saying that it's y'all's time now. It's y'all's time now. I was like, huh. It still brought me back to, okay, what often, is expressed as, it's time to start living. Now it's time to start living. And transparency, that's something that, God whispers to me a lot, live your life. But and I take that in essence too, is because us living was cut short. It was okay, and God understands that. Okay, listen, I understand y'all dealt with this, and now you're dealing with this. But it's time to start living. But even the things that were centered around, for me, that was more of bittersweet too, around when dad passed away, was because it was the height of COVID, and all the family members weren't able to come down, because of traveling, requirements or whatever. But even that, and all I'm not gonna get into the extra stuff. Some of it's in the book. The extra stuff that was surrounded by, family members and his wife. I'm not gonna get into it. But all of that,
'cause
everything that
little
was
sis had to be the big
surrounded.
sis for me for that case, because I was like, okay, I'm gonna be calm.
We're not gonna get into it. We're not gonna get into it. But not on the podcast. Read the book. Some of it might be in there. But because when there's a passing, like it's like wrong time, for the extra stuff,
Yes.
for me. So the fact that we, maintained ourselves, I thought was good.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I'm just gonna say one thing.
yeah.
I think that and I hope this is taken in a positive light for those of y'all listening. Nina, I think you'll understand. But I think that the four of us were connected quicker emotionally and physically to prepare for our to make our father's final arrangements. Whereas like with our mom, we're like, oh, okay, we weren't able to do that, so we were a little bit more prepared for it than I felt like we thought we would have been. So there's like some things like, okay, no, that went wrong with mom, so we're gonna make sure we do this for dad. So there was some maturity and some readiness for it, but it took because the four of us had a conversation, which isn't in my sister's book, but will be in my book. The four of us had a conversation on the way to our father's funeral, and that was the first time that we had a grown sibling conversation about what we were gonna do when our time came. Like we had like a plan that was put in there. Okay, this, that, and whatever. But the conversation that the four of us had on the way to our father's funeral was healing. I believe it helped us start the healing process, but it also helped us like maintain or strengthen our bond. Because I think that like since then, like our bond for the sibling, as us being older siblings, has grown.
Yeah, listen, I'm gonna definitely have to get the book because I don't even remember that conversation. Listen, I'm a blocker. I'm a blocker.
I'm gonna put it in my book. I'm gonna put it in my book.
I be blocking stuff out. Like my brain goes into safety mode. Like, no, ma'am. Like just.
And that is so funny because like the things that you blocked out, like when Nina, she kind of mentioned at the beginning of this podcast, there's Sean, what's this deck? Yeah, it's this. It's the like numbers, things. I was just able to just put it out. Like, yep, that it was this, it was that, it was that. But then some of it's kind of well, I'm good at math, and then so like numbers come to me well, but like the emotions and so, like a couple of events, like as I was going through the book, I was like, I said, oh yeah, that's right, because like my emotions didn't always fit my numbers, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. We pair well. We do. But so yeah, it's a process. And I will say for sure, just the loss of both. That last one though, with dad, though, it definitely brought us closer together. We're, me and my sister are more vocal. I think that also just comes with being the territory of being women, because Leonard and James, they don't really share
They're
much.
the quiet ones.
They are the quiet ones. They process in their own ways, which is fine.
And even though dad had not planned to, he did, he raised two independent women.
Listen, for real.
And then when it backfired on him, because I don't know if you remember that, Nina, but shortly before dad had passed, when I came down to visit you for my 46th birthday, we were talking to dad, and he was just like, our dad was like, asked this question, like, okay, well, why do you make this choice? Why do you make that choice? And my sister, very respectfully, we're like, well, dad, you taught us to be independent. And like specifically to me, my dad was like, why aren't you married yet? I said, well, dad, do you remember telling me not to ever depend on a man? And he was like, that's when you were 17. I said, well, you didn't give me an age. So sorry, Pops.
Listen,
you should have been more specific.
He was big on go to college.
Yeah, I did.
Or, join the military,
check
for one, but relationships, he was not signing up for that. Not no time soon. Not like, no, he wasn't about that life. When you're like a teenager and he was, listen, well, he wasn't happy, when I got married the first time. He was like, no, so, and that's the whole story. Maybe that'll be, in the book about details about all of that. But as we close, because we're about to wrap up on our time here, let's, bring honor to our parents. What's one thing you either mentioned about, mom or dad, something that you want to share with the audience, or you can leave leave the audience with something that would encourage them. And if you guys hear my dogs, I do apologize. I meant to kick them out the other room, but I did
I
not.
can't kick out. No, this is gonna be a family thing. But next thing y'all
I'm
go
dog
just,
sitting. I'm dog
just like
sitting
my.
this
Oh,
weekend.
for
So
real? Send
I'm
me a
dog.
picture.
I will.
To my first nieces and nephews.
I will.
One thing from mom. So, like, I remember mom's traditions. Some of her traditions. One of my mother's traditions was making egg rolls for New Year's, and so I do that for my children now. Making egg rolls. And then another thing was for Christmas. Once you got to be a certain age, like 12, 13, um, my parents stopped buying Christmas gifts. Not in a bad way, but you'd get a Christmas stocking, or at least I don't. Yeah, get a Christmas stocking. And so that's what I do with my kids now, because my children are 18 to 28, and so they get Christmas stockings. And in the Christmas stocking, our mom would give us an apple, or orange, a pear, some chocolate, and then you'd get like some other type of gifts, like a watch or jewelry, something like that. So instead of getting like all the toys and everything, because as I said before, my siblings are anywhere from 9 to 13 years apart. So I progressed to the stockings, where I get like the smaller, like more expensive gifts. But that was fine. I loved it. So my children get Christmas stockings, and that's one thing I've kept up with from. Now the Christmas stockings started off for like being like the traditional size, but now they're like huge. And my kids would rather get their Christmas stockings, because then they're gonna get like a set. Somebody's gonna have matching pajamas, or socks, and like all the other good stuff in there. So that would be like some of the traditions that like our mom have from that. From dad, it would be okay. I know I got this really good. The gift of gab. Nina had put in the book that like our dad could talk to a stranger for like a good hour. Me, that's me. To the point where I use it to my advantage. In order for me to be able to talk and work, I became a teacher. So that way I could teach in the class. I mean, I could talk in the classroom and I won't get in trouble. But yeah, the ability to like talk to people, especially strangers. I definitely got that from dad. And then like I said, like for mom, it's like the small meaningful like traditions. Not that dad didn't have any, but like with dad, like you said in the book, it was like going to the, even though he hated me saying this, mess hall. Going to the mess hall for the holidays, because oh my God, there'd be so much food. And when I got older, the cute GIs there. But yeah, just like the family traditions, and then being able to talk. Because in our family, you're either a talker or you're a listener. So I think Nina and I got the talking part, and I said our brothers got the listening part.
Listen, for sure too. I was gonna say for mine, something else, but I think I'm gonna go in the angle of I'm so thankful on how we were raised, and how we turned out, because even
Yes.
though, we lost mom at an early age, and then dad, I think, well, I don't think, I know that they instilled a lot in us too. We turned out pretty good, to where I feel like they would be proud of us, and I believe that they would be proud even of their grandchildren. Their grandchildren have turned out, wonderful, that if they were
All six
here,
of them.
yeah, if they were here, they would definitely be proud, to be like, this is my family, like, look at my baby. So I'm so thankful
Yes.
for that. And then, what, also I want to add that, I still miss, both of my parents, all the time. I still have my triggers, when you're grieving, or you've experienced the loss of a loved one, that's continuous. It's not something that is. So I still, have my stuff. I still think about my parents all the time, or have just moments where random thoughts will come up. So for someone that has gone through a loss, don't feel bad that, or feel like you should be at a healed point of like, why am I still, thinking about them? Why am I still crying over, this, person? But, like for us, we're very connected, to our parents. Like we come from them. So that emotional bond will always be there. And I'm honestly thankful for the emotional bond, so I'm thankful that, we have those memories. We love them the way that we did. And I hope that, if you've suffered or endured, the loss, and you're having trouble processing through your emotions, I would just encourage you to take your time, give yourself, some grace. Don't put yourself on a time schedule, and just grieve, but thank you, Sissy, for joining me on this episode. And
Can't wait till the next time.
coming up, we're gonna try to do this often, you guys, as often as we can. She's a busy woman. You know what I'm saying? She's over here a teacher and a graduate student.
She's busy as well too.
I'm a little busy,
but not too busy to
we're trying to get these goals accomplished.
Help ourselves heal emotionally.
Yes,
we're busy by choice, not by necessity.
That's so true, because that's important. And I think also to the essence of when I think about living, live, your life. It's not always just about taking vacations and whatever. But it's also about how are you taking care of yourself? Are you taking the time to, tend to yourself, healing wise, self-care wise, mentally, physically, and emotionally. So that's definitely important. That's why we're having these conversations, because everybody has a from grief to purpose story. So that was our time, you guys. Thank you so much for joining us and tuning in.
Thank you.
Be sure to stay in touch with us, to subscribe to the podcast if you have not subscribed. And yes, get the book. Grief Looked Like Me. Yes. I hope that it brings some type of encouragement to you and blesses you. And it'll let you know just a little bit about our own personal journey. So until next time, stay connected. Again, we'll be doing more of these chats, and you can get to know a little bit more about us and join us in our personal journey. All right, you guys. Bye. Bye.